Good morning. I would like to call this meeting of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board to order. Can I begin with a motion to reconvene in open session? Sorry. It's Tony and Sandy, thank you. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Okay, unanimous, carried. Thank you. We're now reconvened in open session. At the first meeting of the year, the board elects its chair and vice chair. I would like now to proceed with the election of the chair. Once the chair is elected, he or she will take over as chair of the meeting. I would like to call for nominations for the position of chair of the Police Services Board for 2024.
Right here.
Tony?
I would like to nominate Ian McLean for chair.
I'd like to second it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to nominate Ian McLean for the position of chair of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board for 2024. All in favor? Any objections? Okay, that's carried. Can I now have a motion to close the nominations for the position of chair? Karen Redmond. Seconded. Doug Craig. Any, all in favor? Any objections? Okay, that motion's carried. Without any further nominations, Ian McLean, are you willing to accept the nomination for chair?
I am.
With his acceptance, Ian McLean is declared elected as chair of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board and will now conduct the election of the vice chair.
Well, thank you, colleagues. Appreciate it. With that, I'd like to call for nominations for the position of vice chair for the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board for 2024. I see Tony Giovanazzo.
I would gladly put forward a motion to recommend Karen Redmond as vice chair of the board.
We have a seconder. Councillor Craig, I think, or Doug Craig. Okay. All with that, if they're all in favor, any objections? All those in favor? So move that Karen Redmond be, or no, we've done that. Sorry. That I've now moved that nominations for vice chair for the Police Services Board be closed. And all those in favor? And that's carried. Without further nominations, Karen Redmond, are you willing to accept the nomination of vice chair?
I am.
Good. And with her acceptance, Karen Redmond is declared elected as vice chair of the Waterloo Regional Police Services Board for 2024. As we move into the formal part of the agenda, agenda item 5.0, territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge that the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements, and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Is there anyone that has any declarations of pecuniary interest to declare on the agenda today? Seeing none. Are there any no, I don't believe there's any closed session recommendations, Megan? Nothing. We're on to the consent items 8.1 to 8.12. Does anyone have any items on the consent agenda that they would like to be moved to the regular part of the agenda? Don't see any hands. So if we can get a motion to move the items found in the consent portion of the agenda. Moved by Sandy and Doug, Karen Quigley Hobbs. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Business arising from the minutes. I don't think there is any. Correspondence, there is none. Police services reports, there is none. We're to item 12.0, Chief of Police Reports. 12.1, Chief, I think it's over to you on Homicide in Canada 2022, and Kelsey Gilmore joins you if you want to give some opening remarks. Over to you.
Thanks very much, and congratulations to Chair McLean and to Vice Chair Redmond. I look forward to the year ahead. So very pleased to welcome Kelsey Gilmore from our Strategic Services unit. She represents many of our amazing strategic planners. So what we have before us today is the Homicide in Canada report. This is an annual Statistics Canada report, and Kelsey is going to walk us through the national, provincial context, but also some local data as well. So over to you, Kelsey. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Chief. I'm just going to share my screen here. Hopefully everything works out okay. Okay. Any problems seeing that? Hearing nothing, I'm going to assume we're good to go here. So
we don't have the display yet. So if you give it another try for the screen sharing.
Sure. Let's see here. Okay. Is that working now? Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So today I'll talk about the Homicide in Canada report that was released in November of 2023. And this report goes over the short and long-term trends in homicides, and that's examined at the national, provincial, and census metropolitan area level, or what we refer to as the CMA. So the report also looks at some of the trends and characteristics of homicides committed in 2022, information on methods used to commit the homicides, whether the homicides was determined to be gang-related, youth accused of homicide, and whether the homicide victim or accused were identified as Indigenous or racialized. And so today I'll focus on the major trends identified at the national level, and then some of those trends at the the Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo CMA level. So in 2022, we saw 874 reported homicides in Canada, and that accounted for less than 0.2% of all police-reported violent criminal code offenses in Canada. And compared to 2021, the number of homicide victims increased by 8%, or 78 victims. The significant increase was largely attributed to the numbers we saw in Manitoba. And to look at Ontario specifically, compared to 2021, the homicide rate increased by 1%. And so the graph here, you'll see that if we're looking at the rate per 100,000 population, Ontario had a rate of 1.91, which is below the national rate of 2.25. The Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo CMA reported 7 homicide victims in 2022, or 1.1 victims per 100,000. And although this represents an increase of about 238%, the absolute difference in number of victims is 5 from 2021. The Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo CMA rate is below the national average. Again, you can see at 2.25 victims per 100,000, and we rank 29th nationally and 13th provincially. So this graph demonstrates our rate of homicides in Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo over a 10-year span. And you can see that all but 2013, we've remained consistently below the national rate. So for some perspective, I've pulled some of our internal data to give you some of the total homicides and attempt homicides for 2018 to 2023. And so a couple things I want to point out here is we have our first row of homicides and our second row representing attempt homicides, and I've coupled those together in the third row to give you a total. In 2022, you'll notice that it says 8 total homicides and the StatsCan report reported 7, and that's for a couple different reasons. Sometimes when we report our stats to StatsCan, a person can later be classified as deceased after the reporting period, thereby adding a number to our count. It might also be the case that after an investigation, is completed, something that was once considered a sudden death is later ruled a homicide. And so that's why you might see that difference in the 2022 number. I've also broken it up by the homicides and attempt homicides related to intimate partner violence, as well as familial relationships. And so to explain the difference between the two, I'm going to use the UCR classifications. And so for something to be considered IPV related, we would look at if there was a boyfriend or girlfriend, ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend, other intimate relationship, or a spouse. For something to be considered familial related, we'd include all of those same classifications included in the IPV, but we'd also expand it to include other immediate relationships, parents, stepchildren, children, and extended family. So next I'll talk about a few of the 2022 national trends that we have seen. So at a national level, there were a total of 342 firearm-related homicides, and this accounted for about 41% of all homicides in Canada in 2022. We also saw gang-related homicides at its peak, accounting for almost a quarter of all homicides. Among those homicides that were classified as cleared, 90 youth were accused of homicide, and that compares to 33 youth in 2021. Indigenous persons and visible minority victims continue to be more likely to be victims of homicide. And in 2022, we also saw 5 police officer homicides, which is higher than the average for the previous 10 years and the highest number we've observed since 1985. And then finally, revised collection methods that happened in 2019 have allowed us to collect information relating to homicides witnessed by children or youth. And from 2019 to 2022, there was an 18% increase in the number of homicides witnessed by a child or youth, and 59% of these were within a residential location. And that concludes the presentation today. If you have any questions.
Well, thank you for the presentation. I guess, especially as it relates to the homicide of officers, really troubling. We've had many of those this year. Any questions or comments from the board? I see Chief, go ahead.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Kelsey. Excellent presentation. And just want to recognize, obviously the national provincial context is interesting, but locally you can see, we're focused on 5-year trends because any one year can provide, an illustration of what's happening, but it's really with a 5-year trend. And we've included the attempted homicides because every one of these investigations represents an intensive months and sometimes year-long investment of our investigators' time, multiple teams involved in every single one of these investigations, and the tenacity, the dedication of our investigators, our frontline workers, our forensic identification unit. It's an all hands-on-deck type of investigation. And this marries into the next presentation you're going to see in terms of some of our concerns about youth and how we can intervene on a proactive, positive basis, and how we're continuing to build out strategies there. And also just before you, in the months to come, is Deputy Davis will provide us also an overview of crime suppression efforts across the region of Waterloo and how we're focusing the integration of all our investigative efforts being evidence-based, data analytics driven, but also focusing on all those contributing factors that lead to, organized crime, drug trafficking related behavior, all those types of behaviors that are of grave concern to us that lead to the most tragic outcomes, which are homicides and attempted homicides. So I just want to give that larger context of today is the tip of the iceberg of some national, provincial, and local reports, but over successive reporting periods, you'll see how these investigative efforts and strategies are coming together. So I just want to give that overview.
Thank you, Chief. Tony, over to you.
Yeah, through you, Chair McLean. Quick question. There was one chart that illustrated the rate of homicide, the Canadian average over the last 10 years versus Waterloo region. The Canadian average is increasing, and the region's trend seems to be more decreasing, if anything. I was wondering, is there any learning that we could have because obviously there's other municipalities or areas where the trend is not declining, it's increasing. Is there anything to be learned from those areas that have increasing homicides that we could take from that, and maybe in anticipating the environment or the conditions that, if there are any, that seem to facilitate these types of homicides? Is that a clear question, or?
Yeah, I mean, I might lean to Deputy Davis just to provide some context in terms of the operational efforts that we're making. And I would say, like, to your point and question, it's so important for us to be connecting our networks through partnership within our immediate surroundings and neighborhood of those surrounding agencies, but also into the Greater Toronto Area, across Ontario and across Canada, because we are often looking to large municipal and provincial services across Canada for those exact learnings. So whether it's the proliferation and the growth of weapons in society, so guns, both legal and illegal possession of weapons is something we're tracking as a increasing trends across locally, but also across Canada. But also the network of drug trafficking and prolific offenders and prolific offenses. So Deputy Davis, I just might point to you to talk about some of your crime suppression efforts and how we're looking at those linkages and learnings from other services across the nation.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the question. It is hard to do a good predictive analysis just simply because of the few number of cases that we have. And one of the first things that we do in every case is we kind of go back and look at, were there any indicators that we are aware of beforehand? So especially in the areas like the intimate partner violence ones. And in many cases, we've never had a prior call to a specific address. So it's really looking at, the crime suppression really looks at, what are we doing with our enforcement and what are we doing with proactive initiatives? And have we completely operationalize those both into everything that we do across the organization. So one of the activities that we're working on is how do we actually work on enhancing our early intervention as well in a number of these areas. So in addition to the enforcement, it's how do we identify problem areas and then work with members of the community on that early intervention piece to try and prevent the incidents from happening again. The other big part that the chief spoke to is really around our networking. So it's how closely are we connected and learning about intelligence from other areas or other departments, because often we do see that crime and patterns that are traveling, especially along the 401 corridor, or Southern Ontario area. So really it's taking that holistic full view of every incident in our preparations and in our planning.
Okay, thank you for that. Sandy has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Deputy Davis, for that context. The other piece, when you're looking at the rates, is our population is increasing, and when it's a rate per 100,000, that's going to adjust our numbers maybe with a municipality that doesn't have the same increase in population. But what I like about the chart is seeing the absolute numbers, and I like the comparison of the familial piece of it. So just to say thank you to the service for the great work you're doing. I know crime is in general is up, and so to see a fairly consistent number here is in the absolutes is encouraging, and thank you.
Okay, Karen Quigley-Hobbs.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to recognize the link that Chief Crow made to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and how critical it is that, you know, the service continue the excellent work it's doing with the collaborative partnerships there, because that's probably one of our major levers for trying to influence things like homicide rates. So thank you.
That's a good point, and I think that maybe that's the right jumping off point for the next report. If I don't see any more questions, thank you, Kelsey, for the report. We will move on. Don't see any more hands. 12.2, the community safety and well-being youth engagement strategy. I know you've got Inspector Aaron Matthias. Chief, I don't know if you want to set this up or go right to the inspector.
Just an introductory comments. So thanks for the linkage. And so just for a continued orientation for the board, as Ms. Quigley-Hobbs mentioned, we're working very collaboratively with our regional and other partners throughout the region of Waterloo on the region's community safety and wellbeing plan. But you'll see in successive presentations by Inspector Matthias and others across the organization, we're also looking at how the model itself can be incorporated into a lot of our own service initiatives beyond those entire collaborative pieces through the regionals plan. So today is an example of our commitment to youth engagement and where we are starting to build some really strong plans that are looking towards the future. And we're very excited about some of the things that are on the horizon. So with that, I'll turn over to Inspector Matthias to walk us through where we are and where we hope to go.
Well, thank you and good morning, Chief, and good morning, Chair. I'll just share my screen with everyone here. I trust we can all see that. I'm very pleased to join you today and speak about the Waterloo Regional Police Service's ongoing involvement and engagement with youth in our region, and speak to some of the upcoming projects that we're undertaking as a service. Framing our conversation in terms of community safety and well-being, the service is committed to engaging with systems and community partners to guide youth away from repeated contact at an incident response level and support, promote, and establish important prevention and social development resources. This will help to ensure the youth in our community are safe, well, and have the greatest opportunities for success. Before moving on, I would like to introduce an important topic of risk factors which may lead to adverse childhood experiences. And these are experiences which include witnessing family violence, experiencing neglect, various forms of abuse, and community violence, amongst others. And a significant body of research indicates that accumulating these experiences through childhood really has a detrimental effect on a child's development and can result in long-term negative health consequences across a lifespan. This concept is so important that some municipalities have listed reducing adverse childhood experiences as a community safety well-being priority. So I'd just like us to keep that in mind as we move through this presentation, and keep in mind how our ability to identify and disrupt the repetition of these adverse experiences through collaborative efforts can improve outcomes and opportunities that will lead to long-term community well-being. So take a look at an overall analysis of current demand and where our youth interaction lies in terms of occurrences. And for that, we'll look across 2020 through 2023. We see a very stable number of youth involved in any type of police occurrence. And we average across that span 12,373 contacts per year with youth aged 16 and younger, and an average of 14,885 contacts per year with youth aged 17 and younger. Obviously not a true representation of all of our connections with youth in the region when you consider our significant proactive work, but it provides a point of reference in terms of our current demand and identifying opportunities to connect youth with the service and our members, as well as community partners. Looking to charges and diversions across Q1 through Q3 at 2022 versus 2023, demonstrates that the number of youth aged 12 to 17 who were charged or diverted from at least one criminal code offense during that time period has seen an increase. The total number of youth involved in those occurrences has also experienced an overall increase. Over this time frame, charges increased by 28%, youth diversions by 7%, and the total youth involved in the related occurrences by about 11.5%. In terms of violent incidents, our uniform crime reporting, or UCR data, demonstrated significant increases between 2022 and 2021 in instances where individual youth aged 12 to 21 were charged with at least one violation. And the categories we looked at were crime against the person, experiencing an increase over that year of 28%, assault, an increase of 18.5%, firearms saw an increase of 181%, and robbery 134%. However, if we look back to pre-pandemic levels, these numbers have actually stabilized and returned to 2019 levels, where we saw a dip across the pandemic, with the exception of the firearms violations, where we still experience an increase of 48%, 2022 versus 2019, for clarification. So ultimately, our goal is to engage the concepts of community safety and well-being to improve outcomes for youth. And some examples of how we're going about that is the service has very successful and ongoing youth initiatives, such as Youth in Policing, Cops and Youth, Youth Career Day, and our annual Backpack Challenge. And these are only a few of the examples of our efforts designed to create positive experiences with youth and police, providing youth leadership opportunities and civic engagements. We're also keeping our mind on those adverse childhood experiences and looking for opportunities to mitigate those through collaboration by exploring where they exist in our data. And two quick examples of those. In 2022, the service recorded 6,700 intimate partner violence occurrences. From those occurrences, 2,794 children were listed as involved, that's ages 16 and younger. 26% of these children were also involved in more than one police occurrence during the same year. Additionally, looking at youth victim data from 2023, 241 youth aged 17 or younger were classified as victim crime against the person. 76% of these youth had 2 or more police occurrences in their lifetime, while 29% had 10 or more police occurrences. And this speaks to the importance of finding opportunities to engage youth, collaborate with our partners, and change the repetitive nature of these outcomes. And lastly, in terms of youth violence, I'm very pleased to introduce an upcoming event in partnership with the University of Waterloo, where members of our Strategic Services Unit, Crime Analysis, and sworn members will present some of the information included in this report at an interdisciplinary information session, where we hope to generate collaboration and research ideas to address youth violence in our region. The information session will take place on February 7th. The research period will last 1 year, and results will be presented in the fall of 2025. Given all of the information that we've seen today and the trends that we've reviewed, it's apparent that there's significant opportunity to develop an overall approach to youth engagement. To accomplish this, the service will conduct planning through the first 2 quarters of this year to develop a youth engagement strategy. Our planning, framework, and strategy will be informed in part by youth, systems, and community feedback. We are very fortunate to have existing information. We'll also look to leverage other sources, such as the upcoming Youth Impact Survey, as well as Canadian Index of Child and Youth Wellbeing, while identifying additional opportunities to glean that information. A team that will be overseen by a panel of senior leaders will analyze this information, develop our goals, and the actions needed to actualize our efforts around youth engagement. We really plan on aligning this with our upcoming strategic business plan, as well as the region's community safety wellbeing plan, taking that opportunity to improve outcomes, placing an emphasis on developing partnerships, fostering positive experiences with police and youth, while contributing to a community that's safe and well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the report. It's such important work, and I know Chief talks about the community safety and well-being plan as a whole, and certainly the youth is an important part of that. Going to board members, Chair Redmond.
I just really want to commend Inspector Matthias for your leadership, as well as the senior leadership of WRPS. Community safety and well-being has been around for a couple of years. In the region of Waterloo, we took our time to move forward, and maybe weren't the first out of the blocks, but I think really created a great synergy within the community. And Inspector Matthias, you talked about collaborative and disruptive, and I would tell you that I think our plan has done this in a very, very positive way. And while you're charting positive outcomes, you're also talking about the negative outcomes or the absence of negative outcomes, and those sometimes are harder to measure but hugely impactful. And I just wanted to, as a footnote for WRPS and in the community, and I hope they're paying attention to this because this is a very good news report, to just underscore that the chief is coming to Roma on the weekend, which is a conference of rural Ontario municipalities. We miss no opportunity to talk to cabinet ministers and to the province to tell them about our plan and to talk about breaking down the silos and continuing to work forward. So this is a very positive initiative and great news, and I want to thank everybody for their hard work.
Well, thank you. Sandy, you're next.
My thanks also to everyone involved. I can't help but think when I see statistics like this about and linked with, of course, the community safety and well-being, but upstream initiatives and supports for families and youth. And what the question that came to mind is we don't have the same presence in the high schools that we once did. And do we have any data or do we have any observations in how that's affected or if it has, and maybe you can't make cause and effect because times change, but just curious.
So I'll jump into this one. I think, thank you, Mayor Shantz. It's probably one of the most often asked questions that comes to me and some of our leaders is what is the impact on where we are with, the experience of legacy of this school resource program. So what I can tell you is from a data analytics standpoint, it's one of the hardest things for us to measure. We could always provide metrics on the in-school response when we had members attached to those occurrences. But what we've learned and what we know over time is that there's incidents that happen on school grounds during school hours or that are reported as such. And then there's everything else that happens around schools in the evenings, on the weekends, and beyond. So to get it to an answer, the purpose of today was to signal that we're trying to build a wide and deep strategy to look at youth health and well-being very broadly, and then to match our operational commitments to that. So we look forward over the coming months and years on layering out our total commitment to those positive interventions with youth, crime prevention efforts, those community collaborative connections that we can make to get people on the better path. And obviously we'll have operational commitments that will play out. So we have tried to develop an analytical data-driven framework to understand youth violence. But part of the initiative that Inspector Matthias signaled to is we want to welcome in some academic partnerships to tackle this from a few different directions. Because we have the local analytics provided, but we know that there's more to the story in terms of what we know and what we can learn moving forward to develop strategies. So we're looking nationally and internationally at models of positive youth intervention, crime prevention, and we look forward to continuing to report and inform the board and the community on where we are, where we need to go. We know that this is probably our best opportunity at those long trend crime prevention efforts over time. So we're very excited, and our entire service and our entire membership will be committed to this moving forward in many different ways. So look forward to that.
Yeah, if I can just add quickly, we all know this is a whole community issue that needs to be dealt with, and while police services plays an important role, I think the work of the community together and all the agencies and upstream work is really key. So thank you.
Okay, Tony's next.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Maybe a comment and a question here. I think Inspector Matthias mentioned maybe some of the causes of why youth are going down a certain path. Some of them could be a journey that they're experienced within the household, and some of it could be the environment directly around them, I'm guessing. So in my mind, and I'm maybe touching on a sensitive issue, which Councillor Shantz just talked about, is we need to get youth in an environment where they feel safe so that they can be encouraged by those positive role models around them, be it any issues or crises that they're facing within their household or around them in their immediate community. I see a school as being one of those, and I know we're not there anymore. And so besides making that comment, I'm going to ask, what other forums or environments can a youth, and how are we going to expose ourselves to those youth in an environment where they feel safe, where they can remove themselves from some of the constraints of be it the environment they're in or their household? Have we got forums or areas that we can participate in, or we're finding some success, or areas that we want to focus on? Is that a clear question, Chief, or?
It is, and some of the hinting of like the tip of the iceberg answer was contained in the report. Is we already have, so beyond the school resource program where we did have that role as role models, mentors, positive interveners. We have also always had mentorship coaching opportunities. It was cited in here about the Youth and Policing Initiative, where we bring people into the service through co-op, through the YIPI program, Youth and Policing Initiative, where they actually work alongside us. We want to expand that volunteering capacity so that we have young people joining us through our everyday work in many different ways. So that's something we expand. We've had the Cops and Youth program, the Citizens Police Academy for young people sort of over time, which has been a very proactive initiative. We want to expand those types of programming. And anything else along those lines where we can intervene. Sports, coaching, mentorship opportunities are sometimes our best examples. But when some board members have mentioned the collaborative pieces, when we can match our best efforts with other existing community supports, agencies and organizations and leaders, that's where we start the multiplier. And so we can develop strategies on positive youth intervention through community programs, community centers, and then some very deliberate, interventions. That's where we're going to see the best opportunity. And we know that our members are devoted to those positive engagements. We just need to provide them the opportunity amidst our regular operational commitments. And that's where we'll be able to commit ourselves, but also involving different stages of society along that partnership journey. So, Aaron, I might have stolen any thunder in an answer that you're going to provide, but you're helping to evaluate things at the forefront, and I don't know if you have any more depth to provide to the response.
I can add a few points. Very fulsome answer as usual, Chief. But I think we just look at building those community connections, and I think of resources like the Child and Youth Planning Table, where we're having very productive conversations. The Youth Engagement Network, which is a community of practice within the region as well. And how can we leverage some of the, we talk about safe spaces, and that's a priority under our community safety wellbeing plan. How do we leverage existing, whether it's community center networks, items like these, and weave ourselves into those opportunities? So these are all things I think, as the Chief alluded to, I think everything's on the table, but those are maybe just a couple other points.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and I would strongly encourage any organizations out there in the community to help the service through this initiative, because it does take a village to raise a child. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. You're next.
No, I appreciate all the comments, and I think if you look at police services and how it is engaged across the regional community, it's extraordinary. All my movements in the past, no matter where I went, whether it was a chamber breakfast or Oktoberfest at City Hall, or any kind of specific celebration by different ethnic communities, there was always representatives, and there always is representatives from police services. The add-on to that is the fact that municipalities, through their sports programs, through their uh, neighborhood associations, and I'm referring to Cambridge. We have 9 of them that have been in existence over 30 years, do an extraordinary job in engaging youth. So there's a lot of positive things taking place. For all of us, it's disappointing to see some of the youth statistics that in schools in particular, and or to listen to the news at night when you find that 4 youth have been arrested for stealing cars ages 14 to 18. And that's very upsetting. And I find that very upsetting. So I think we're on the right track. We're doing all the right things. I think we just need to blow our horn a little louder at times in terms of the positive things that police services is doing. So my congratulations go out to everyone. They're doing a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Karen Quigley Hobbs.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that. I think the service is very progressive in their approach, and I think we'll see a lot of positive results from that. Just a really quick question of clarification. I'm hearing there are a lot of integration points with various community stakeholders, such as the Children's Planning Table, various partners of that nature. Are they connections that are more in terms of fact finding and environmental scan, that type of assessment process? And has there been consideration to perhaps some level of advisory at sort of an oversight level? Just curious.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'll let Inspector Mathias to jump in on that. Because there's the current state in there where we hope to go as well. So there's some obvious leverage to where we are.
Yeah, thank you for the question. In terms of the fact finding, we're waiting on data from the Youth Impact Survey from 2023. And I think that's representative of nearly 2,000 youth in the region. So that's a fantastic source of information and feedback that we can inform ourselves with. Beyond that, having some discussions at that level about actually bringing them in-house to provide some training to this working group that would put us kind of on the same plane using similar language, concepts, and theory. So we're building something, that the youth will want to engage with us. It can't just be solely a police lens on it. So, I anticipate obviously further evolution from that standpoint, but that's kind of where we are at current state.
Okay, I see no other hands. I have one comment and then a question myself. Again, the school resource officer program, I hear on a regular basis from parents and from those that are actually teaching in schools that they miss that program. And I know we have a different relationship between the Catholic or the separate school board versus the public school board. And it's not the only tool. Chief, you've made clear of that. And I think this report indicates there's a variety of things, but I do think that's, that's one of the places that Tony and Doug have talked about as being a place where kids do spend 6, 7, 8 hours a day. Just a logical intersection point. But in your capable hands, I know you've got building relationships with all of the players. So, but that's what I hear in the community on that program. Inspector Mathias, and I'm just wondering, and I may have missed this, but in the report there was 16 plus, and there was I think it was 16,000 interactions in that chart, and then there's 17 and under. Just wondering why the reason that there's that delineation is that to show that there was, I think it's about 2,500 more interactions for that one cohort of 17 to 16 on top, or what was the reason that it's divided that way? I was just curious about that.
No, I don't think there was a specific reason. I just wanted to ensure that we had kind of an understanding of that number up to and including kind of where the Youth Criminal Justice Act has application.
Okay.
But it is an interesting statistic, and as I looked at it, maybe provides ability to break that down further just to see where we can place resources most effectively.
When I think that's what I was trying to get at is, is if it's by the time they're 12 to 13 and you start to see that going up, I mean, I presume that that's probably where it is, but that might be useful in the next go around to kind of see where the stepping off point is. Okay, thank you. That answers my question. I don't think there's a motion, Megan. No motion. That was just for presentation. So thank you, Inspector. Appreciate your coming and joining us today. I think we move on to everyone's favorite part of the agenda. I know it's the chief's favorite part. No, I'm just kidding. 13.0 monthly Chief of Police report. Over to you, Chief.
Thanks very much, Chair McLean. Very pleased to provide an overview of activities over the past month. And December is a busy time of year across the region. So very pleased to provide a number of operational successes that we've had, building on a theme of the amazing work of our members, especially on the front line. So just to kick off a sense of where we ended 2023, there was 18 shootings in total last year in the region, and this follows a 5-year trend of an average of 19 shootings over the past 5 years. And so we kicked off in early January. There was a significant incident of violence in Cambridge where there was 11 shots fired into a residence. So our investigators are continue to investigate this occurrence, and we're certainly appealing to any information from the public or Crime Stoppers. But our proactive initiatives have continued along the lines of crime suppression and addressing incidents such as this. So our drugs and firearms unit was very successful through a seizure, through a search warrant application in a residence in Kitchener. And during the investigation, you'll see displayed some of the evidence of drug trafficking and possession of weapons and so on. Ultimately, a 23-year-old Kitchener male was arrested and charged with numerous offenses. Similarly, there was an incident related to a proactive traffic stop that occurred in Kitchener. 2 males were arrested with evidence of drug trafficking and firearms possession as well related to those offenses. We had a traffic stop conducted in Cambridge using one of our newer tools, the automated license plate reader technology. So officers using that tool were made aware of a vehicle registered to a suspended driver, and ultimately their traffic stop revealed, again, evidence of drug trafficking and also possession of weapons as well. And ultimately, a 30-year-old female was charged with those such. And just one other example of this was suspected fentanyl cocaine was seized in an intervention where we were notified by the public of an unconscious male in the driver's seat of a vehicle. Officers attended and located a vehicle in Kitchener where we obtained grounds for impaired operation, but also the possession of drug paraphernalia and drug trafficking evidence as well. So you can see variations on the same theme that impaired operation of vehicles, drug trafficking, and often weapons are tied to many of our proactive initiatives, and kudos to all of our frontline members dedicated to that. Something that was brought forward recently was our commitment to motor vehicle theft interventions. And so one such example, there's a video shown here of right in someone's driveway, people breaking into a vehicle. So since December of 19th of 2023, officers have received about 10 reports of stolen vehicles and 3 reports of attempted thefts through the region of Waterloo. These incidents have involved highly sophisticated organized groups using reprogramming technology. So an example is on January 3rd, 2024, our break-enter and vehicle theft team completed a search warrant at a residence in Cambridge. And in that investigation, an 18-year-old male was arrested and charged with 10 counts of theft of motor vehicle, 3 counts of attempted theft, possession of an automobile master key, that's the reprogramming technology, and ultimately 5 stolen vehicles with a value of $400,000 were found through that investigation. So our dedicated efforts to thwarting vehicle thefts within this region and beyond will continue. Just to give a snapshot of road safety efforts, through the course of December, our officers and our traffic services unit across the front line were busy. You can see some figures displayed. I'll note that 58 impaired driving charges were laid throughout the month of December. And I think in years past, we've been in the round of 800 impaired driving charges on an annual basis. So we'll have some of those year-end statistics to show you shortly. And just significant as well was our commitment to the Festive Ride campaign. So We stopped over or intervened with over 8,000 vehicles across the region of Waterloo on 13 different days between November and January 1st. So a lot of concerted efforts and positive engagements to see the effects of good driving behavior and people adhering to the limits of alcohol and drug consumption. And we're very pleased with the vast majority of those interactions and people getting the message, and those who are not getting the message in terms of the dangers of impaired driving. You can see 28 charges were laid through the course of those positive, proactive engagements. Changing course a little bit, as you know, we are now getting accustomed to our new amazing police division in Kitchener. And so we've made an appeal to the public through the course of the past month for some artistic talent to animate and bring color to our walls. So we've just displaying here just some examples of the hundreds of submissions we've had from young people across the region of Waterloo who have given us some great depictions of police work and partnership and proactive community engagement. So just a snapshot of some of those really amazing artistic talents that have been provided to us. So we look forward to displaying those moving forward. As you're aware, we are so proud to host the Special Olympics Spring Games in May of 2024. So we have made a wide appeal to the public to assist us through our hosting of these games. So we're seeking upwards of 500 volunteers. We're soon to unveil a draft and athlete initiative broadly as well. And we look forward to that continued community commitment and support. And along those lines, our annual commitment to the Polar Plunge in support of Special Olympics Ontario will be held in March 2nd, 2024 at our headquarters. So those who are brave enough to take the plunge with us can get their ideas for outfits and their style. They're going to jump into the frigid water, and you can start to assemble your plans there for that plunge on March 2nd. And lastly, just a snapshot of the many community events that we're involved with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. We've had our Blue Crew in a friendly match with some young Rangers in a great game in support of One Roof. We've had their commitment at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, and also our recruitment efforts will continue throughout the region. So subject to any questions, concerns, thank you very much for this opportunity to provide the Chief of Police report, and wishing everybody a healthy and happy 2024. Thank you.
Chair Redmond.
I can't let this report go by, and I hope I wasn't distracted and dismissed it, but mention of the support of the food bank. There is an annual competition for gathering a finite series of groceries at a local grocery store, and Chief Crowell was champion this year. He cleaned the floor with the rest of us. I think there were 5 of us competing. He did an amazing job and has thrown down the gauntlet. And I hope that Chair McLean will do as proud as WRPS service board members next year. But well done, Chief Crowell.
We learned through failure, and it was an honor to participate again. Thanks.
I don't see any other question, but I have one question for the chief. What is your costume this year for the Polar Plunge, Chief? I know this is one of your favorite things to do, jump into cold water in March. So what are you wearing?
I expect I'll be in full uniform again, and I may have. I'm still selecting a partner potentially. There may be some special athletes that might want to join us this year in that first plunge. But really looking forward to it, and it won't be long before we're there. So thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions from colleagues. So moving on, new business. Any new business? Future agenda items? Actually, Chief, you mentioned year-end financials, and I wanted to just signal we will have year-end final numbers for our budget from last year, including all of the detail, which will include, or when it's finalized, I ask you whether that's going to be March or April, or February, March or April, which would include final reconciliation with the region and reserve funds, etc. I know there was, and I'll charitably put it, some confusion during last year's budget cycle around various things like, overtime and reserves, etc. I think it's really important for us to close this budget cycle this year with actual facts from the year end. And so I know there's a series of questions I've raised, and I think you've committed to coming back with that year end report that kind of addresses some of those I would just say some issues where there was some misinterpretation or not understanding how our budget is fully put together. So I just wanted to give you the opportunity and say, from my perspective, I think that should be when we get that final report, and kind of look to you to say, as you're doing the year-end report, so we can kind of pull all those strands together and wrap it all up. Because as we said earlier today, at one point, we're already into next year's budget cycle, so I want to make sure we tidy up this year. So I don't know if you have a sense of when. I don't think it's February, but is it March or April when we'll have final numbers?
Thanks, Chair McLean. So through Deputy Fenton and then our Director of Finance, Kirsten Hand, I expect that the consolidation of those year-end reports will occur throughout February and March. And then our work with the Region of Waterloo comes together for that total reconciliation of year-end finances. And our regular reporting period, I can't confirm, it will be either March, potentially based on the dates. It may bump it into April, just depending on when the board meetings follow. But we look forward to providing those year-end reports to the board, and we'll be happy to walk through any of those clarifying points in terms of what occurred throughout 2023 as we look to construct this year's budget and beyond. So that'll be coming within the time period of March, potentially into April.
Okay, I think that's great, and that'll help us make sure that it's a more smooth and seamless budget cycle in I guess it's for the 2025 budget now. So, okay, thank you for that. I don't see any other hands. Last item is information items. Megan, nothing? No information items? Just a note to the media as we wrap up. Once we're adjourned, members of the media are welcome to log into Zoom with the login credentials that were provided, where Chief Crowell, myself, will be available to take questions from the media. I don't see anything else, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn. See everyone's hands flying. Karen Quigley Hobbs, seconded by Doug Craig. All those in favor? None opposed. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a safe